Hello. Alright, look, just wanted to continue on, thinking about the third person and introducing some extra elements and maybe even presenting some imagery. Alright, let's dive in. I'm going to quote from a book. Not a book about psychedelics. Alright, it's called 137. It's a story about Carl Jung and Wolfgang Pauli. But I wanted to get to something in particular. Here we go. In light of our understanding of the third dude and things like that. So we're talking about Carl Jung talking to another physicist of the time named Pasqual Jordan. Jung was ecstatic that a physicist of such high repute was interested in the paranormal. Jordan's interpretation of telepathy was that it was the sender and receiver sensing the same object simultaneously in a common conscious space. Jung, conversely, considered that the instance of telepathy occurred not in a conscious space, but in a common unconscious with only one observer. This one observer looks at an infinite number of objects, not just one. Right, that's interesting. So here are two, again, some interesting individuals in the story of psychology and physics, arguing with one another about the mechanics behind so-called paranormal events. And Jung really tried to bring that down to something that wasn't so paranormal and, described synchronicity. And everyone today is, well, we're aware of synchronicity, and yet we perhaps ignore the deep need for synchronicity, so to speak, meaning simultaneity, to be proved. Otherwise it isn't, in a sense. So this is going to bring me now to this idea of sender and receiver. In a sense, what makes the situation I experienced all those years ago makes it interesting is because so if we are now thinking about relativity and we say that third person, needs to be actually directly in the middle of the two participants, in the middle, and then at a right angle to that. It needs to be there. Otherwise, you can't even attempt to answer whether simultaneity had occurred or not. Okay, so the two participants are the senders and receivers because it's just the two of them. It was just the two of us. We're just sitting there and we're talking, or we're standing and talking. So we're doing the sending and the receiving. And then we say a fluke happens where we experience jinx or simultaneity of thought. Hence, almost, I won't say forcing, but in a sense, it's creating a potential well in which the third person needs to be there to confirm the claim. Right, so you think about the third person is a pure receiver. It's just receiving, and all it will do is send back a confirmation of yes, you did, or no, you didn't achieve jinx. All right, so it's doing its own sending and receiving. We're doing our own sending and receiving. Now, if that third person is located exactly at the equilateral triangle, I know I'm getting specific, but I'm about to show you some stuff which will make it clear why we're talking in the way we're talking. So, senders and receivers, right, if there's an equilateral triangle, start to all become equal. Meaning, if simultaneity had occurred between myself and the other, then that third person was in a position to answer it. Okay, now the distance between Justin and myself is now also the distance between Justin and the third dude and myself and the third dude. All right, so now I'm in the position to say whether simultaneity had occurred between the other and the third dude, the other participant. See, because now we're all equal. We can all do that for each other. We can all testify to the truth of the situation. Both I and the participant and the third dude are all in this unique space that allows one to be the testifier of the truth to the other, right? And you've got this three-way beautiful thing occurring, and we're for a brief and specific kind of way, we are all equal with source, or the source of the confirmation. See, it's not just that the third dude is out there going, correct, yes, you achieved simultaneity, and then send that message back to the pair of us. It's not just a matter of that, right? So we understand that situation. Now we just need to consider one new thing, is that in the first place, simultaneity had occurred between the two participants because that third dude was there, because its presence being equal distance from all the two of us, it sends a signal which obviously then arrives at person A and person B simultaneously. Okay? All right. So I'm trying to develop some mechanics or an explanation, a mechanical explanation for what what it is. And I said we've already established that the fact that it's considered an hallucination makes it sus because of the nature that it is obeying the laws of physics, right? Hallucinations don't need to do that, right? And this one was now obeying a law of physics that neither person A nor person B understood, and that's fascinating. That's the key. And it wasn't just the fact that it was a simultaneous hallucination, that we could both look again. I'm trying to say that this contact with the external third person, because it sits at one extreme end of the spectrum, meaning up until the point at which you reached it was smoke, and then the next thing you know, it's a phase transition. You're not just getting to the smokiest part of smoke, you're going to the fire. It changes, right? It's new. It's at a certain level. Anyway, I want to talk again now about John Lilly. And from the center of the cyclone, it's something that I need to bring in now. What had happened? He'd had an accident, accidentally injected bubbles into his bloodstream. Now, during this accident, he met some entities. Now, we don't know exactly what state he was in. He wasn't directly under the influence of a psychedelic, but he'd had a psychedelic only in the previous couple of days. Now, during this so-called coma that he goes through, he meets these entities, and he's specific about what they are. He calls them the two guides. Okay. I came across two who approached me through a large empty space and who looked, felt, and transmitted guiding and teaching thoughts to me. Suddenly, in the distance, appear two similar points of consciousness, sources of radiance, of love, of warmth. I feel their presence, I see their presence, without eyes, without a body. I know they are there, so they are there. As they move towards me, I feel more and more of each of them interpenetrating my very being. Right, so he's talking about some good stuff, like he's out there. They stop at a critical distance. They stop at a critical distance and say to me that at this time I have developed only to the point where I can stand their presence at this particular distance. If they came any closer, they would overwhelm me and I would lose myself as a cognitive entity. Again, he's talking about this meeting of the guardians, the two guardians, the two guides. Okay, now this happened, right? He then says, I need to take a certain psychedelic, maybe go into the float tanks, try and meet those two guides again in a new space. All right. As he said, one of my major aims here was to get back to the place with the two guides that I had been in during the coma in the hospital when I was close to death. All right, now it's been brought to my attention this idea of two things. Let's talk about it maybe from a more clinical perspective. Not that I'm qualified in any way, but I can't help but notice certain connections. So the first is third man syndrome. Apparently, what can happen is that under extreme physical forces, such as mountain climbing, or apparently the case of achieving travels to the South Pole. This only just was brought to my attention in recent days. I was fascinated. Okay, so you have that thing. I was on QI as well. Anyway, third man syndrome, and you also have something else called Folie deux, meaning the folly of two in English. This idea when you can almost whip each other into almost a psychotic frenzy or some mechanism that I'm not skilled enough to explain. But something is interesting about this third dude and two entities. I am probably drawing too much of a bow. I'm pushing it, but I think I'm onto it. I've sort of talked to AI about it. It says, yeah, of course it's going to be general. Yeah, you're connecting the dots, of course. Well, of course we're all trying to connect the dots, right? But are those dots not necessarily worth connecting, but are they worthy of being entitled to the claim that it's all connected? Okay. All right. So I've just gone through some interesting little extras to just tie up some bows. I wanted to show you some artwork. I'm not sure the best way to do this. Should we do it like this? Not very good. This. Now, this is, as far as I know, 13th or 14th century Japanese Buddhist work, or Shinto-inspired, or I believe it's Buddhist. But yes, you have two, well, you have what are known as the bodhisattvas, two, and positioned in the middle of them, but off to the side at the 90 degrees, so facing us is the Buddha. Just couldn't help but notice the geometry there, right? And this is something I'm now going to really push because this is the key to what we're talking about. All right. Again, just another example of it. Again, Japanese, I believe. Every time I see this, it just makes me think. I know not of, Christian Orthodox church or artwork, or I'm no historian. I'm no art historian, as opposed to Terence, who was. I'm not sure what I'm picking up there, but I get something when I see that. Okay. Now this one. These are like these lions that guard certain Chinese temples. I think there's one on either side. Alright, it's very old. I believe it's the male and the female has the cub underneath one paw. And the male has some kind of toy. Just curious about these two guardians and what they hold. And it's just a close-up of what is under the paw of the temple lion. I love it. I love it. It's a toy, supposedly, but Terence also described them a little bit like toys. Anyway, now, sorry for having to do this, but this is, if there's ever going to be a symbolic representation of sender and receiver and third person, it's this. I mean, whoever's done this, they're onto it so hard, so tapped in. It's hard to... Look, there's no other way to put it. And to check this out, they go a step further, right? Now, see how I'm saying distancing really matters? They've actually put the checkerboard down to give you, like, the exact distancing of where some of this stuff can occur. And again, third person, moon, sun. Sun is the emitter, moon is the receiver or the reflector. Simultaneity can be achieved by the positioning of a third person. That's all that is to it. Fantastic stuff. And look, I just thought I'm going to also show you this one. This one somehow reminds me of what it was like the third. It's like it's been cut out of the metal there. It's almost like a keyhole. Almost feels like a keyhole where one might be able to step through.